Welcome back, my erudite friends, to another edition of MonteCristo's Power Rankings, the Thinking Fans Power Rankings. As you may have noticed, my studio has not been set up yet. I am at my new house, and that has been a little bit delayed, so I'm sorry for the lack of character in the Power Rankings today, but hopefully we can make up for it with some excellent content instead. So let's get started right away after 2 weeks of competition here in Stage 3 with our number 20 team, of course, the Florida Mayhem. Now, this shouldn't be surprising if you've been watching many of their games. Yes, Florida has managed to steal a map so far off of the Paris Eternal, who are a team that are going to be moving up quite a bit in our power rankings, but are still 0-2. It looks like they're in experimental phase right now. I think we can say that they have definitively been upgraded with Fate at the main tank, but considering it seems like they're still teasing some future signings of players, they're playing around with whether it's Byram or Hagopun in at that flex support position. They just added Rain, a new primary support that we haven't seen play with the team yet. It's going to be a while until we get real information about the synergy. So until they can figure this out internally and get all of their players on site, I think they're probably still going to be pretty far down in the rankings overall. At number 19 is the Washington Justice. This is a team that, while they have had some strong defensive rounds, and it seems like when they have a long time to discuss their ult economy, they can sequence GOAT's ults properly, but overall their attacking rounds have been somewhat disastrous. They're very streaky in the server, so they'll be able to hold for several minutes before collapsing and then not being able to do anything on their next attack round, let's say. So obviously, this team needs a ton of work. I'm not sure this is going to be fixed this season. They've tried to make additions, and it really hasn't helped because many of the other teams have improved as well. Surprisingly, at number 18, we are going to discuss the Boston Uprising. Now, this is a team that's been well coached all year, has won via some scrappy and creative strategies, but has sort of maintained a low overall teamfight win percentage, which is one of the best metrics in Overwatch to determine how good a team is and if they're going to win during a series. So they were somewhat of an anomaly, and that may just be catching up to them right now. They've come into this stage dropping 4 matches. They've only won 2 maps. One of them, those map wins was against the Paris Eternal, and the other one against the Philadelphia Fusion. They got absolutely crushed by London and Houston. So this team, weak start, almost certainly not going to make stage playoffs right now. We're seeing Persia in instead of AimGod, the flex support for some reason, even though AimGod looked pretty good for most of the season. So a lot of questions, I think, right now around the Boston Uprising, but they're also a franchise that can make adjustments and bounce back, so I don't anticipate this slide down to the very depths of the power rankings to last too much longer. Number 17, we have the Guangzhou Charge, and this is off of the virtue over their win versus the Chengdu Hunters. Otherwise, they've looked pretty woeful, losing to the Valiant, getting completely shut out by the Seoul Dynasty. So Guangzhou, we said many times that they had a very tough run in Stage 2. Their strength of schedule was really difficult. They were playing against some of the top teams in the standings in the Overwatch League, so that this was their time to shine. Guangzhou needed to come in and really have a strong stage against some of the weaker teams, but when you start losing to Valiant, who's definitely on the upswing, but even so, it shows that you sort of deserve to be in the basement of the league, as it were. At number 16, we have the Toronto Defiant. Toronto Defiant coming off of losses to the Paris Eternal, which was a bit of a surprise, and then a rather crushing victory, or loss rather, against the London Spitfire. We're still trying to evaluate this team. Obviously, they are trying to make moves and fix their tank line. Yakpung was the main problem. People will come back and say, oh, well, Yakpung performed better against the London Spitfire, but, Gods and Sherrick, if you want a duo that's going to be able to speak the same language, be on the same page. So the experimenting continues. Not sure which is the right way to go for them just yet, but at least they're trying something, and I am 37 still trying to develop into that professional role. Probably going to take some time on this one to make sense of these adjustments, hence they're going to be down there towards the bottom of the standings. Controversially, I think at number 15, I will have the Philadelphia Fusion. This is a team that to me just looks like they don't want to fucking be there. They don't want to be on the stage. It doesn't seem like they have a lot of motivation right now. They're lethargic when you watch them play. They narrowly beat the Boston Uprising. They were absolutely smashed by the Spark and lost to the Gladiators as well. Until you see some new life in this team, I think it's going to be really hard to place them higher. As long as they're playing in this GOATS meta, I just don't see... They haven't really improved in terms of teamwork or cohesion at all, honestly, this season. And while many teams have gotten better, they've sort of just stayed at the same level they were. And that means as the other teams get better, they're going to be dropping down the rankings. So I hope to see something better out of Philadelphia. I know they're a good team, so it kind of just... It sucks to see them this way. At number 14, we have the Chengdu Hunters. Now, Chengdu, always so difficult to place in these power rankings, because on the one hand, they're beating the Dallas Fuel, on the other hand, they're losing to the Guangzhou Charge and the Valiant. So at this point, you know, they're going to be able to pull off some upset wins against teams that are not really prepared for their style, and I think we saw that when they played up against the Dallas Fuel. But overall, you know, they're going to snatch a few wins, but they're probably going to lose most of their games. That means they're going to be staying at like sort of the lower end of mid-table, at least for the moment. Number 13 is the Dallas Fuel. Dallas Fuel, obviously always an interesting team, and they seem sort of like a gatekeeper right now because, again, they had this very weird outlier where you probably think they should have been able to beat Chengdu. Fortunately for them, they face Chengdu again in the coming week. So next Sunday, they'll be playing Chengdu again. So a chance for revenge there. But Dallas's only win so far this stage, their 1-3, is against the Washington Justice, and they have gotten pretty destroyed, pretty devastated by the Vancouver Titans and the Gladiators, not even able to pick up any maps against either of those teams. While it's true that Dallas Fuel have one of the hardest strength of schedules alongside the Chengdu Hunters, which is going to make both teams probably look worse than they are, given the caliber of their opponents, Dallas Fuel, like I said, they appear like a gatekeeper. They're sitting there being able to beat some of the bottom teams, but it seems like they have some morale issues in the roster, because as soon as they start to lose versus a good team, it seems like they just slowly lose worse and worse and worse the longer the series goes on. So I think they definitely need to keep their heads in the game more. If they can fix some of that issues, their tilting issues, at least that's how it appears to me from the outside. That's when you can see them rising again. But it might take until next stage when they have an easier schedule. Surprisingly, at number 12 is the Paris Eternal. And this is a team that could easily drop again, but it's also one of those times where they are 3-1 this stage. They're probably one match out of actually being a competitor for the stage playoffs if they get that fourth win. The problem is the quality of their wins. Against Toronto, Boston, and Florida doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. Plus, they get to play against Boston next week again in week 3, which means that could actually potentially clinch them for the stage playoffs, which would be exciting for Paris fans, but with their strength of schedule, a little bit questionable. We'll learn probably some more when they play against Houston, a team that appears to be better than them for the time being, but I do appreciate that Paris has started running Gray. Gray has had some really clutch moments, some smart hero swaps even late on maps where he can pull out the Widowmaker on Havana and make sure that he clutches it out for a map win. So I feel like Paris is starting to really develop as a team and figure out which of these players should be on their starting roster. So that's exciting. I'm tentatively excited about Paris, but at the same time, you really have to look at that strength of schedule and say, okay, how is this going to shake out for this team? 3 games left. They only got to win 1 though, and then we can see some real stuff in the stage playoffs. And finally, for this video, at number 11 will be the Atlanta Reign. And a lot of people will say, Monty, how can you pick an 0-4 team who has only won 5 maps this stage across 4 matches and say that this is a team right in the middle of the pack? Well, they did beat the NYXL twice last stage. They have had a break right now. And you have to consider in power rankings always the strength of schedule. Their first week was brutal. They played the Shock and the Vancouver Titans. They took the Shock to 5 maps. They played a relatively close series against the Titans. They come out of week 2. They have to play the Shanghai Dragons, a team that's really on the rise. Again, play them to a 5th map. The one outlier is, of course, them getting absolutely wrecked by the Seoul Dynasty. So that's why they are not actually higher right now. If it had been a competitive match, say Game 5 against Seoul 2, they could have been even higher in these power rankings just because of the caliber of opponents that they've played closely. This team, though, if they want to move up, they've got to, obviously start winning matches, and they've got a good chance. They play Philadelphia as their only match in Week 3, which should be winnable for them, and then at their homestand in Atlanta, they play the Defiant and the Mayhem. So this is a team that could actually end the stage 3 and 4, but be better than many of the teams, I think, in the stage playoffs. That's going to do it for this episode of MonteCristo's Power Rankings. Please stay tuned for number 10 through number 1 coming your way shortly.